Euro 1976 saw the first surprise winner in the tournament's history. Against all odds, Czechoslovakia managed to topple the total football of the Netherlands and world champions West Germany to become European champions. This tournament would also become known for perhaps the most legendary penalty in football history, the Panenka. A penalty that would start a lifelong feud. This tournament would come down to penalties, but bizarrely, this was a last-minute decision on the day of the final. But how did Czechoslovakia become champions? How did the idea of the Panenka penalty come about? Why were penalties the decider for the final instead of the replay as initially planned? This is the story of Euro 1976. Nobody expected Czechoslovakia to make an impression. Their recent tournament history had been a disaster. Since 1962, they had only qualified for one major tournament, the 1970 World Cup. They lost all three of their group games. Václav Ježek managed them. He had a remarkable club career, managing Sparta Prague 4 separate times and winning the league title in each spell. He built the side around Anton Ondrus, a man referred to as the Beckenbauer of the East. They relied on Ondrus to sweep up at the back, as they often played on the back foot and aimed to dominate the aerial battle and launch quick counterattacks. Antonín Panenka was their flair player in midfield. Panenka had a philosophy. My football motto was, play for joy and the entertainment of the fans and yourself. I wanted them to talk about my actions and my goals in pubs and other places. Before moving on, please consider liking, sharing and subscribing. I'm in the process of going through the history of each Euro tournament. I upload a video every 2 weeks. My next video will be on the 1980 Euro. If you are new to my channel, consider watching my now completed World Cup series. Thank you. They were drawn into a tough qualification group alongside Portugal, Cyprus and England. They opened their campaign against England in Wembley. For 70 minutes, the game was competitive, and Czechoslovakia defended resolutely. But in the 72nd minute, the floodgates opened for Don Revie's England. Roger Channon scored 1, then Colin Bell scored 2 more late on, and England won 3-0. Czechoslovakia played Cyprus at home next. This was a far easier game as they swatted them aside 4-0. Antonín Panenka scored a hat-trick, and Marian Masny got the 4th. Czechoslovakia continued their resurgence with a 5-0 thrashing of Portugal at home. Přemysl Bičovský and Zdeněk Nehoda both scored 2, and Masny got the 5th goal. Czechoslovakia faced England at home in Bratislava next. This was the group's critical game. England was top with 7 points, and Czechoslovakia had 4. At the time, it was 2 points for a win. England had played one more game. Czechoslovakia had to win to have a chance of finishing top. It would prove to be a controversial and brutal match. Firstly, the weather got in the way. The game kicked off in terrible foggy conditions, which got so bad that it was abandoned 17 minutes in. The game was rescheduled for the following day. England made a strong start and scored a deserved goal after 26 minutes. Mick Channon scored with a lovely lob over keeper Ivo Victor. The game would become violent and controversial as the Czechs took a physical approach. They hit England with numerous hard tackles and even reports of punches. Despite this, the only player sent off was reserve keeper Alexander Wenzel for arguing. Czechoslovakia equalised after 44 minutes through Zdeněk Nehoda, who headed the ball in. 2 minutes into the second half, Dusan Galis gave Czechoslovakia the lead after finishing with a diving header following a lovely team move. Despite English pressure, Czechoslovakia won the game 2-1. Don Revie said after the game, "Provocation that I have seen in this game was worse than Argentina against England in 1966. Czechoslovakia now had its destiny in its own hands. They had to win both of its remaining games to win the group. They got off to a great start away against Portugal. Anton Ondrus scored after just 7 minutes. Remarkably, Nene scored just 1 minute later for Portugal. Despite the best efforts of Czechoslovakia, the game finished 1-1. It seemed England now had control of the group, but incredibly, they also drew 1-1 away in Portugal. This meant Czechoslovakia needed to beat Cyprus in their final game to finish top. Cyprus lost all their games and did not score a single goal. Czechoslovakia made light work of them as they beat them 3-0. Czechoslovakia finished top of the group with 9 points. England were knocked out after finishing with 8 points. Things would not get any easier for Czechoslovakia as they faced powerhouse the Soviet Union next. The Soviets reached the final in 3 of the 4 previous Euro tournaments. The first leg was played in Bratislava. Czechoslovakia put on a brilliant display as they seemed to take the Soviets by surprise. Josef Moder gave the Czechs a deserved lead after 34 minutes. Czechoslovakia won a free kick 22 yards out, and Panenka fired it into the bottom corner to make it 2-0 in the 47th minute. They could have had 3, but they missed an open goal. The game finished 2-0. The return leg was played in Kiev. Moder scored in the 45th minute to make it 1-0. The Soviets got the equaliser in the 53rd minute, but Moder scored again in the 82nd minute to make it 2-1. The Soviets made it 2-2 but lost 4-2 on aggregate. Against all odds, Czechoslovakia qualified for the final tournament held in Yugoslavia. This was the only time the Euro was held in a socialist state. Czechoslovakia, West Germany, the Netherlands and Yugoslavia qualified as the final 4 teams. Czechoslovakia was drawn against the Dutch and West Germany against Yugoslavia. Europe expected a 1974 World Cup final rematch between the Germans and the Dutch. It was an excellent opportunity for Cruyff and the Dutch to get their revenge. The semi-final against the Dutch was played in a torrential downpour. The weather suited the match, as several key Dutch players and Welsh referee Clive Thomas furiously argued throughout the match. Czechoslovakia started the game more brightly. Panenka crossed a free kick into the box that Ondrus headed in after 19 minutes. In the second half, Jaroslav Polak was booked twice and sent off in the 60th minute. Czechoslovakia were down to 10 men. In the 73rd minute, Ondrus scored again, but unfortunately, he sliced it into his own net. It was 1-1. In his only Euro appearance, Johan Cruyff was booked in the 76th minute. Due to his booking in the qualification tournament, this meant he was suspended for the final. Johan Neeskens was also sent off, meaning both sides were down to 10 men. The game went into extra time. In the 114th minute, Panenka clattered into Cruyff, but no foul was given, leading to Nahoda scoring with a header in the far post. Willem van Hanegem was so angry with the decision that he refused to kick off again, which led to him being sent off. The Dutch were down to 9 men. Panenka played a through ball to Moder, who made it 3-1 in the 118th minute. Czechoslovakia had spoiled the party for the Dutch and knocked them out. The Dutch players were furious with referee Clive Thomas. He was unrepentant, later saying, "My friend Johan, trying to tell me what the laws of the game are." The semi-final between Yugoslavia and Germany was an absolute classic and another example of German tenacity. The game was played in Belgrade, and Yugoslavia made a blistering start. They had numerous chances early on and forced multiple saves from German keeper Sepp Maier. Danilo Popivoda gave Yugoslavia the lead after 19 minutes. He ran onto a precise long ball, took an exquisite touch into the box, and poked it into the bottom corner. In the 30th minute, they doubled their lead. A cross was fumbled by Maier, which allowed Dragan Djajic to score in an empty net. Yugoslavia were 2-0 up. Germany began to exert pressure on Yugoslavia's goal in the second half. They had a couple of chances and finally scored in the 64th minute. Heinz Flohr received the ball outside the box and decided to take a shot. It took a big deflection, which wrong-footed keeper Petrovic and went in. It was 2-1. In the 82nd minute, Germany had a corner. It was whipped into the box. Dieter Müller was left open inexplicably, and he headed the ball in. It was 2-2. The game went into extra time. Yugoslavia tried to hold on, but they began to tire late on. In the 115th minute, they finally broke. A low cross came to Müller, and he scored from close range. Just 4 minutes later, he scored again. A shot bounced off the post to Müller, who tapped it in to complete his hat-trick and make it 4-2. The Netherlands beat Yugoslavia 3-2 in the third-place playoff after extra time. The Euro 1976 final was held in Belgrade on June 20th. The plan was to play 90 minutes, extra time, and then a replay if needed. However, just a few hours before the game, the German Football Association made a request. Panenka would later describe it. They said that their players had already booked some holidays, blah blah blah, and asked if penalties could be taken straight away instead of a replay. Amazingly, the German players did not want to bother with a potential replay because it conflicted with their holiday bookings. Czechoslovakia were the underdogs, and they figured penalties would give them a better chance of winning. They agreed to the last-minute change. Germany went into the final as overwhelming favourites. They were the reigning European and world champions after their triumphs in 72 and 74 respectively. They were fully expecting to make an unprecedented hat-trick of titles. This was Beckenbauer's 100th national team appearance. He seemed wary of the Czech threat. Czechoslovakia as a team is to be estimated higher than Yugoslavia. How strong they are, we have seen in the extra time against Holland, where they were even able to increase their strength. Czechoslovakia made a fast start. In the 8th minute, Messi shot from the edge of the box that was saved. There was a scramble in the box before the ball fell to Jan Švelik, who scored to make it 1-0 for the Czechs. Švelik was later elbowed in the head by Schwarzenbeck and needed treatment. Schwarzenbeck did not receive a yellow card. In the 25th minute, Czechoslovakia doubled their lead. Messi took a free kick that Beckenbauer cleared, but the ball came to Karol Dobias, who struck a lovely volley which made it 2-0 to Czechoslovakia. Despite this, Germany once again showed their tenacity. Just 4 minutes later, Rainer Bonhoff crossed into the box and Müller volleyed it in. It was 2-1. In the second half, Germany began to dominate. They forced multiple saves from Ivo Victor. Despite all the chances, it looked like the game would end 2-1. But in the 89th minute, Germany had a corner. The cross came to Bernhard Hosenbein, who headed it past Victor to make it 2-2. The game went into extra time. Germany was stronger during extra time, forcing Victor to save from Flor and Müller. Despite the pressure, they could not score. A penalty shootout would decide the final. Masny, Nehoda, Ondrus and Jurkemik all scored for Czechoslovakia. For Germany, Bonhoff, Flor and Bongard scored. It was 4-3 when Uli Hoeneß stepped up for Germany. He struck it powerfully, but unfortunately it flew over the bar. The next time Germany missed a penalty in the Euros would be 40 years later. Antonín Panenka had the chance to win the title for Czechoslovakia. What he did was not spontaneous. He had developed this penalty technique. After training at his club, he would have a penalty competition with keeper Zdeněk Ruska. So, in the evenings, I would think up ways to beat him. That's when I realised that, as I ran up, the goalkeeper would wait for the last second and then gamble, diving to the left or the right. I thought, what if I send the ball almost directly into the centre of the goal? Panenka took a long and slow run-up. It looked like he was going to blast it, just like Hoeneß. Instead, he chipped it down the middle with a soft touch, and the ball seemed to float in slow motion towards the goal. Maier had dived to his left, but Panenka already had his arms aloft. He had scored with an incredible chip down the middle, a technique that would forever be known as the Panenka. Czechoslovakia were European champions. None of us could believe we were European champions, said Panenka. It was like Alice in Wonderland. Despite all the celebrations, the penalty resulted in Panenka having an enemy. German keeper Maier felt humiliated by the nature of the penalty. Some foreign journalists, especially the ones from the West, insisted that I made fun of Maier, that I made him a clown and things like that. Panenka later commented to the BBC. He didn't speak to me for the next 35 years. Thankfully, their relationship recovered in recent times. I think that our relationship has been perfectly normal lately. Well, that was the story of the 1976 Euro tournament. My next video will be on the 1980 Euro, so if you'd like to know more, please subscribe and hit that notification bell.